So today we're going to be in part two of our Sell Smarter with Foresight AI series, and we're essentially going to be covering some of the tools that you get with Foresight AI and how you can just essentially use them for success. This is, as I mentioned, the second part of our Sell Smarter with Foresight AI series. The first one we had back in September, we discussed things like stockouts and overstock, how Foresight AI can help identify stockouts and overstock, some strategies for working with stock out and overstock and some of the strategies that it provides you. And to reiterate what I said last time, we started this series because we have been working really hard on our end to just find the differences between those clients that loved Foresight AI and those that it didn't just quite work out for. And really, it was often a difference in understanding the value that a tool like Foresight AI brings, how to set it up, how to properly configure it, and I'm super excited to continue bridging that gap today, show you all some or give you a little bit of insight into some of the effective strategies. I won't go all the way into effective strategies because we have an amazing 301 Foresight AI certification that deep dives into all of these things, deep dives way better than I could ever imagine to deep dive in a span of 30 minutes. But my goal today is essentially going to be to talk about some of these features. These features, while they all didn't release in August, a lot of them were improved with an August release, and which was one of the reasons why we started this Sell Smarter the Foresight AI series to go over those and talk about how they help and all that fun stuff. So you all know, and also when you're talking about it to clients, you all know how to talk about these sorts of things, how to think about these sorts of things, and how to present these sorts of things too. So without further ado, let's get on with the presentation. My name is Caleb Carter, Senior Partner Enablement Manager at Sin7. If you all do not know me yet, hello, and I am excited to get to know more of you all in the future too. And so essentially today we're going to be talking about, first of all, Smart Reorder. Smart Reorder is a massive tool, probably one of the most important tools with Foresight AI, because it is what uses your forecast that is generated by Foresight AI to give you replenishment decisions and help you make those informed replenishment decisions with your product. Whether those replenishment decisions be purchases, transfers, assemblies, production jobs, if we're talking about Omni, it helps you do those sorts of things and make those sorts of decisions. Also, we're going to be looking into forecast adjustments. Forecast adjustments are adjustments that can be made to the forecast, but essentially they'll help you improve the forecast if there are events like promotions or market trends or things of that nature that maybe can't be predicted based on past sales, but should be a part of the forecast. And we'll talk about more use cases for those when we get there. We'll talk about the purchase budget planner, what it is, how to harness it, how to use it, what it's showing you, and a couple of different strategies for that. And then we're going to also dive into a couple supplier and warehouse settings. I'm going to talk about some of the most important settings to help optimize your setup, specifically for Smart Reorder, but as we've seen with Foresight AI in the past, it can kind of range and help you with a whole bunch of different things because anything that affects the forecast is going to affect Smart Reorder, is going to affect reporting, is going to affect the purchase budget planner. And so it's kind of like a domino effect with the supplier and warehouse settings. So it's important to make sure you know the ones to improve, why you would improve them, and some strategies around that. So let's start out with Smart Reorder. So Smart Reorder, essentially what it does is helps you avoid lost sales, and it helps free up cash by turning your forecast data that it produces, and you can see that in the forecasted settings. You can see the forecast data in a couple of different areas, but it takes that data and it turns it into accurate replenishment suggestions. So it shows you exactly what you need to order, when you need to order it, how much to order, so that you stay stocked where it matters without overbuying where it doesn't. And at its core, Smart Reorder is going to be there to answer some of the three most important questions in the inventory planning process, which first of all is just what to replenish. So Foresight AI I hate when it does that sometimes. ForesightAI forecasts sales for each SKU location and flags what needs to be reordered. And then also, as you might have seen just a second ago, it tells you also when to replenish, right? So it uses things like supplier lead times, purchase order cycles, and items like safety stock to time orders before those gaps occur. Things like before forecasted sales occur, before potential stockouts might occur due to those forecasted sales. So it helps you figure out when you exactly need to make that order. And it also helps you know how much of that product to replenish. So it calculates the ideal quantity that's needed to meet that expected demand, factors in things like seasonality, risk, safety stock needs, and things like that. And these all result in the reorder suggestions table, which is what you can see on this slide in front of you. And with all the purchase orders you'll need now and in the future, and not even just purchase orders, you can use it to show transfer orders, assemblies, and all those kinds of things too. And behind the scenes, Smart Reorder is essentially combining three key data points: how much inventory you currently have, how much you're forecasted to sell based on that calculated forecast, how long it takes to restock based on your purchase order periods and lead times, also transfer purchase order periods and transfer lead times for transfers. And then with these inputs, the system is automatically going to generate replenishment proposals that are tailored to each product at each location for the needs at that particular location. And like I mentioned, it doesn't stop at purchase orders. Smart Reorder also just suggests those transfer orders between warehouses to make sure your stock is balanced across all your warehouses and it's where it needs to be, where the sales will be, and then also assemblies to convert those raw materials or bundles into finished goods. And all of this is proven demand. All of this is powered by proven demand planning strategies, industry tested algorithms, and advanced AI. So every recommendation is designed to help you stay ahead of demand, prevent stockouts, and make the most out of every dollar that you invest in your inventory, making sure that you're not putting money into products that aren't selling, making sure you're putting money into the products that are selling, that are making you the money, giving you the profitable margins, and things of that nature too. So now that you know what Smart Reorder is and what it does at a basic level, what are some other unique features that it has to offer? Well, first, you can filter the reorder suggestions by this thing called product segment. And product segment is something you've probably seen over and over again, but it's just another word for those winners and chasers and losers. I think it seems to be what they're rebranding winners and chasers and losers to into this thing called product segment, but it's going to show you the exact same details. You can choose to do things like filter by product segment. So you could see this little filter area up here. Right now it's filtered to all, but you can use it to only show you orders for products that are winners, only show you orders that are products that are losers or chasers. And additionally, the fact that product segment is on here also does things like it allows you to see how much of these orders are in each product segment. So you can't see it right here, but at the top, there's going to be a little area that can show you winners, chasers, and losers, and it'll show you the total dollar value of orders in each of those categories to essentially just help you make decisions, right? Sometimes you might want to focus on purchasing your winners first when you're looking at your reorder suggestions versus looking at your losers and making sure you're purchasing the right products. And it can also give you some reasons to why some products might be being ordered and when some products might not be being ordered as much. Um, Additionally, you can dive deeper to see things like lead times and stock expectations. You can see those right down here below. Essentially, if you click on this little caret right here to give you a little bit more data about each order line, you can see these additional things. And one of them is stock expectation and lead time. And so stock expectations and lead times essentially helps you to answer the question of, if I placed this order on the reorder date, when might I expect to receive it in my warehouse? So this comes directly from your lead time set in the forecast and settings, that admin area for ForesightAI, where you can set your lead times in for both your suppliers and potentially for your warehouses if we're talking about transfers. You can also set it technically in the edit arena if you have product specific lead times, but it helps you just know if I were to order it, when can I expect to receive this product? As this example, I have a very large lead time, 294 days. So for this particular order, I wouldn't be receiving it until June if I placed it in August. So it can help you help give you a reason, more of a reason why it's making these sorts of suggestions. You can see for this particular product, I might not have any past sales in this past sale period of 30 days, but since I have a 294-day lead time, it can see that I might have an order coming up next June based on my past sales, and that's why it might be suggesting me to create a reorder. You can also see minimum order quantity. So minimum order quantity is that minimum quantity of a SKU that can be ordered from a supplier. Also something that is set in your forecast and settings area too. And a couple other things that you might see is, first of all, product status. So product status can tell you if an item, or it can tell you a couple different things actually. First of all, I can tell you if an item is in stock out or at risk of being stock out, which might be why it's trying to order a particular product. There's other product statuses too, though. It can tell you if a product is a winner by giving you a little crown status symbol. And it can also, there's a new one called rising star. So if it's a little up pointing arrow, that means that the product is trending, has increased customer demand, therefore it should be reordered. There's also a way to, like I've mentioned, see your past sales. So you have a little past sales column right here to show you the number of the quantity of items that have been sold for that particular product in the past sale period. So this past sale period can be changed between, I believe it's 30 days, 90 days. You can choose 180 days or 365 days. Obviously, it can depend on the range of the planning period that you're working with, but it just really allows you to have flexibility of seeing this in different periods and the past sales amounts in different periods. Then lastly, what you can see here, which is probably the biggest thing that you can see, is going to be the sales forecast. So even more so, it can give you that sales forecast to show you what it's forecasting the sales to be for the next 6 months, to again, just help you understand possibly why an order might be wanting to be placed here, why we're suggesting an order. And all of these improvements as a whole are meant to essentially give you the most information as possible at your fingertips when using this tool for your reordering decisions. And these improvements are actually as of August. So Smart Reorder has been a thing for a good amount of time, but if you haven't used it since August, you might have not seen these particular features on there. So feel free to go check them out. And I personally can't wait for whatever more features they add to these, because I think these are super cool things to add. Makes it a lot easier, and it helps you figure out, okay, why am I getting these reorder suggestions? Why is it telling me to do this? Now, one big thing you can think about is when it comes to smart reorder for your clients, often just implementing a new system to guide your replenishment strategy can feel super risky. I hear it all the time, right? So it's completely natural to hesitate with some of these smart reorder suggestions. It's suggesting me to do a $100,000 order, $200,000 order. It's a pretty big decision to make just based off of something an AI tool is telling me to do. But really, it's designed to simplify purchasing decisions when you're first getting started with Foresight AI. Um, but when you're first getting started with Foresight AI, the suggestions can sometimes raise more questions than answers, I guess. And a product, and what can happen is a product you really show could be showing like a large quantity. Some suggestions might seem bigger than expected. Others are spread across locations or may come with unfamiliar timing. And even though you want to follow the plan, you're not quite sure where to start, whether it makes sense. And so a lot of these data points and a lot of these orders that are being suggested are most time, or not most time, are always based on a lot of the forecast and settings, those supplier settings, those warehouse settings that are set directly in Foresight AI. So what are some of the ways that you can improve those? What are some particular settings you might want to think about setting up to make sure that what you're seeing here is the best data possible? Well, that's where it comes into optimizing your warehouse and supplier setup, right? What are some of the key settings that are needed to configure in order to make sure that what you're seeing in Smart Reorder is accurate and you can trust what's happening in Smart Reorder? So first of all, I'll talk a little bit about warehouse hierarchy. So warehouse hierarchy is set in the warehouse settings of your forecast and settings. But warehouse hierarchy is essentially when you're telling Sin 7 about whether a warehouse is going to receive transfers from other warehouses or whether a warehouse is going to purchase product directly from the supplier. So if you have a warehouse that is at the top of the hierarchy and it doesn't receive inventory from other warehouses, obviously that product will be, or that warehouse will be one that places purchase orders. And so if you're looking at smart reorder suggestions and you're choosing to do purchase orders, you'll typically see them for those top level warehouses. But you can also have situations where you're getting transfers from warehouse to warehouse. And so if you have a warehouse that is below another warehouse, let's say you have, to put it into simpler terms, you have parent warehouse at the top and you have child warehouse at the bottom, under the parent warehouse, then whenever there's inventory needed at the child warehouse, then it's making a transfer from the parent warehouse. It's not placing purchase orders directly from the supplier. However, the parent warehouse can have demand coming from the children. And so if the children are pulling from the parent warehouse, that can create demand in the parent warehouse. And then that parent warehouse will need to place a purchase order many times if that demand makes it to where we have low stock in that instance, or we're in risk of stock out. So setting out warehouse hierarchy is super important for making sure that you're getting proper reorder suggestions, the proper type of reorder suggestions when you're looking at smart reorder. You can also think about your transfer lead times and purchase periods. It says purchase periods, but these are for transfer. I said purchase periods because that's the term that you'll see in there as well. But these are specifically set in the warehouse settings as well, same place that you set the warehouse hierarchy. And this can define if I were to place an order today, right? How long is it going to take for me to get that order? And that's where lead time is going to come in. You can also think about the purchase period, which is going to be the frequency of transfer orders being placed. So how often are we placing these transfer orders? If it's a warehouse that is, halfway across the world, maybe we're not placing transfers every 7 days. Maybe we're doing transfers every 90 or 180 days or whatever the case may be there. And one big thing about setting purchase periods is yes, it can define how frequently you're placing orders, but it can also define how big those orders are. Because if you say you have a purchase period of 90 days, then we're going to order 90 days worth of inventory for you. And so that's obviously going to be a bigger order than if you order every 7 days. So those reorder suggestions can receive those purchase periods and they can make that decision of how big of an order you need um, to know how long you need that inventory for. You can also specify where production takes place. So kind of the same theme of the warehouse hierarchy. You're saying whether a warehouse receives transfers or receives its purchases. You can also say whether a warehouse has production that happens there. So if you have demand at a warehouse and that warehouse or that product in that warehouse that has demand has a bill of material assigned to it, Sin7 can suggest that an assembly or a production job can take place whenever and that item is needed there. Supplier lead times and purchase periods. This is kind of the same thing as transfer lead times and purchase periods, but this is specifically in your supplier settings. So you'll be able to set supplier lead time, right? How long it's going to take to get that order. If I place that today, when it's going to receive it into my warehouse. So how far in advance do I need to place the order? And then also how frequently am I placing these purchase orders? And again, that can also define how big those orders are. If you price orders more frequently, smaller orders, less frequently, bigger orders because you need the inventory for more time. You also have supplier MOQ. So supplier MOQ will play a part in reorder suggestions as well. You saw on the last screen where you can directly see the MOQ and lead times for that matter when you are making these purchasing decisions. So you'll be able to see MOQ and set MOQ to make sure that our reorder suggestions are at least to that MOQ level, at a minimum, at least. And essentially all of these settings here, as I've mentioned, are super important for making sure that Smart Reorder is working properly. having an effect or changing these settings is directly going to change your smart reorder suggestions. And if you don't have these settings set up properly, then smart reorder suggestions won't work properly as you would expect. So super important to make sure these are configured, and these are all going to be configured in that forecast and settings area. There's sometimes confusion with new timers to ForesightAI. They're like, hey, I mean, I've been working in Sin 7 Core. I set up the lead time in Sin 7 Core. Why am I not seeing it here? Well, a lot of these settings, or all of these settings right here, are actually set in the forecast and settings. So if you're in Smart Reorder, you actually have a direct link to forecast and settings in the top right if you're looking at it. You can also get to your forecast and settings by going to your integrations, Foresight AI, clicking on the forecast and settings there. So go into there, make sure these are all configured properly so that you can put a little bit more trust into what you're seeing out of Smart Reorder. And that's another reason why we give you those data points when you're doing it too. So you can make sure that everything is set up properly while you're making those decisions. And we talk about a lot of these settings in the Force.ai course as well. So I know I just touched base on all of these, hey, just make sure you're looking at these, make sure you're thinking about these, and that's all great and fine and dandy. But if you're looking for more so strategies to be able to use these properly and effectively for particular scenarios, highly recommend checking out that course because it goes much more in depth into each of these than I ever could. But one thing that you might not see in the course, at least at the moment, is going to be this purchase budget planner, which I think is a super cool feature. And this is something that came out in August. You'll see it in the Sin 7 financials, in the financial section, at least in Sin 7 Core. So if you go to financials, which a lot of times I've talked to partners that are like, I didn't even know we had a financial section because you use the accounting integration so much, but we do have a financial section. And this is something you'll see in there if you have Foresight AI. This is a pretty nice tool because combining with your smart reorder suggestions, those purchase suggestions from smart reordering, it can allow you to put in your available funds for each month. It can show up to a 12-month look, and it can help you see if you have a overbalance of funds. So in this scenario, I have $1 million to use, 915,000 in forecasted POs. Awesome. So I have a 84,000 plus, I'm good. I can make all of my PO costs. But you might be able to see something like what we see in June 2025 right here, to where we only have $1.2 million in available funds, but we have $1.4 million in forecasted PO costs. So, oh no, we have a shortage, right? We have $218,000 worth of POs that we are not going to be able to make. So what it can show you is it can show you that calculation of balance of funds, which all of us can probably make that small calculation, but it can further take it and say, this is what you're going to see for your lost revenue. And then also what you're going to see from your lost margin, which I think is a pretty cool thing to do. It's like, oh, you can't purchase these products. This is the money you're going to lose from that in both revenue and margin. And if you're asking yourself, how does it make that decision? How does it figure out how much money you're going to lose? Well, what it does is it assumes that you're buying your winners first, or your products that are highest on the winners chain and going down from there. So it assumes that you buy those, and if you choose to not spend 218,000, that's going to be in your losers category or your chasers, or maybe your winners also, depending on how your categorization is here. In this situation, it's going to be a little bit of losers. So you see $627 in losers and a little bit, $278,000 in chasers. So it assumes that, and it calculates that loss revenue and that loss margin. So it can help you see, okay, maybe I do need to put more money into this, or maybe it can help you make the decision of, oh, I'm not going to lose that much margin based on this compared to, if I were to put in more money into these PO costs. So maybe I can forfeit purchasing another 218,000. So super cool tool. You can see that I can break this up by product segment. If you clicked on the product segments up here, you're actually able to break it up by supplier as well. So you can make it to where you have a line for each supplier and forecasted PO cost for each supplier. And again, these are coming directly from your smart reorder suggestions. So it assumes, hey, if I was going to make all of my purchases in the smart reorder suggestions, this would be those forecasted PO costs. So if you have Foresight AI in your account, feel free to check it out, see what it's all about, play around with it, because it's a pretty cool tool and something that can be used hand in hand with Foresight AI, and something that I find a lot of partners don't often know about because it's not front and center. It's in a financial section where you might not be, and so be sure to check it out because it is a pretty cool tool. I've heard a lot of great things about it. So lastly, one of the things I'll talk about is going to be forecast adjustments. So since Foresight AI relies on historical data, it's important to actively engage in its forecasting by making adjustments for factors that it simply just can't predict from past sales. This includes things like new promotions, market trends that are happening this year, new sales channels that you're entering into, or environmental changes at your locations that could impact sales. These are things that, as you imagine, Foresight AI will not detect from past sales data alone. So let's say you've done something like you've signed a deal with a national retailer, launched a major marketing campaign that's expected to drive a sharp spike in sales, or you've secured a massive confirmed order for 100,000 units that's tied to the upcoming season, maybe an upcoming back to school season or something like that. Since this demand isn't in your sales history, or often might not be in your sales history if it hasn't happened before, Foresight AI is not going to predict that on its own. Perfect use case for something like forecast adjustments. So what are some other situations you might use something like forecast adjustments for? You might have like planned campaigns or short-term deals like a distributor promotion. You might be attending a new upcoming trade show that you haven't attended before. You might be expanding market share in a way, opening a new location, doing something, coming up with a new product, signing new retail partners, entering new regions, expecting a large order from a distributor retailer. You get a distributor that's like, hey, I'm going to place this order, a new order that I haven't placed in the past, and you want to be able to prepare for it, right? And so these are all things that, as I've mentioned, won't be assumed based on past sales, and you have to plan for it, right? You have to make sure you have your items on hand and on stock for these new events that are occurring, these new market trends, whatever the case is happening. So that's what forecast adjustments are for. You can do a couple of different types of forecast adjustments. You can do things like a change in percentage, which you can give it a period, and you can say you're going to have an increase in this much percent in sales or a decrease. You can do a trend in percent, or you can do a change in exact quantity. All of these things are talked in much more depth in our Foresight AI course. But there's actually one more thing I wanted to talk about with forecast adjustments. That's a pretty cool use case of it. And it's actually a great tool for something like scenario planning as well. And it's an interesting use case for it because if you're doing scenario planning, maybe you're testing out some growth opportunities, you're testing out scenarios, you're seeing what your sales might be or what your purchasing might be. Let's say you're projecting a 30% increase in sales. You can temporarily put a trend percent adjustment to simulate what your growth would look like across your products. Once applied, Foresight AI will generate new forecasts and replenishment plans based on that particular scenario. So you can see a whole new forecast based on these forecast adjustments. And as you might imagine, and as I've said in the past, it's a domino effect. So whatever affects the forecast will also affect your smart reorder suggestions, and your purchasing plans, your inventory flow, and help you see if you have supplier readiness and things of that nature too. So it's a safe way to test assumptions as well, spot constraints, and make smarter long-term decisions. And so super cool use case of it as well, not just simply for forecast adjustments to prepare yourself for upcoming events, but also to see what might happen, what might my forecast, what might my sales look like if this happened, and in turn, what might my purchasing look like if that were to happen as well. So those are the main features I'm going to talk about today, or I'm going to tease, at least I guess I'll say today. But if you want to learn much more about Foresight AI, we have a 301 Foresight AI partner certification where you can get in-depth playbooks for handling stockouts and overstock, tips for using smart reorder, how to properly use forecast adjustments, and even more ways that you can use them, more ways that you can set up warehouse configuration, supplier settings. It's fully on demand. There's Foresight AI partner resources in there, so you can learn about how you can use the new demo data generator tool, the partner admin as well, and all of that kind of fun stuff. Um, and it allows your team to just be ready to use ForesightAI effectively for your clients. And not only that, but we have resources in the partner portal as well. So these resources are in your asset library. You can see them in product assets, ForesightAI. We even have the past presentation, the past webinar that we did posted onto there. So if this was the first one you attended, then you can go check out the part one of Sell Smarter with ForesightAI on the partner portal, in addition to other things like one pagers, the product demo, training and enablement guides, and all that fun stuff too. So that is the end of today. I went a little long, I apologize. But are there any questions? Oh, Q&A, perfect. Remind us when the partner, great question, Kathy, great question. So Partner Academy, we're switching up the links today for the Partner Academy for the new LMS. So it should be good to go by tomorrow. And we have all of the partner courses, including the 301 Foresight AI course, built out in the new Academy. So once that new Academy link comes live, then you should be able to see that in there. So it should be on live tomorrow. And so check in there and you should see it. And it may look a little weird. I haven't personally seen it in the new LMS yet. I'm going to be seeing it later today, but it will all be there. All the content's going to be there and you'll be able to consume it there. How long is the 301 on-demand class? Well, I mean, for me, it took me an afternoon. I even took the class because I learned new things from it as well. But there's a couple different things on the 301 on demand class. Like there's an exam that you could take. There's learning about some partner resources and all that kind of stuff. I've seen people do it in a couple days. I think if we're looking at an hour range, I'd say probably about 3 to 5 hours is a good estimate for the 301 on demand class. So that's probably what I'd assume it's going to take if you were to start it yourself. Definitely an advantageous class to take though, and we'll be sending a link to it with the follow-up email, so you can see it when you are getting your follow-up email, and you can take it right then, or you can at least sign up for that and plan to take it in the future. Awesome, amazing. I'm glad we had questions on the course. That means you're interested in taking it. I love it. Well, feel free to reach out with me with questions in the future, or if you want to go ahead and take the course, that should answer a lot of questions as well. And I invite you to take it too. And other than that, I appreciate everybody coming as always. It's super awesome to see all you all here, and a lot of familiar faces too. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it, my friend. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. I apologize for going a few minutes early, but I hope it was worth it. Take care, all.